This is the stuff dreams are made of. I'm writer-collector Ryan Condal.
And I'm writer-collector Dave Mandel, and you're listening to the original movie prop collecting podcast, brought to you by Heritage Auctions, HA.com. They've got the giant Ruby Slippers movie memorabilia auction, a selection of only the finest Ruby Slipper and Ruby Slipper-esque pieces in an auction. Check it all out at HA.com. And we've got a big show coming up all about that soon. But HA.com, check it out. How are you today, Ryan?
I'm good, Dave.
Happy early Thanksgiving.
Happy early Thanksgiving, or as they call it here in England, Thursday. But we are the Americans. They always make a point of saying it's American Thanksgiving, as though, I don't know, we're some weird aliens. But they do make room for it. School and work and all that, so everybody understands that
they acknowledge it exists in some form, is what you're saying.
Yes, in
Great,
some somewhat passive aggressive form, but yes, it is acknowledged. So yes, we'll be celebrating this week. This is, Dave, I believe this is my 5th English Thanksgiving.
Oh Lord!
So it's been a long run, my friend.
While.
Yeah. Can
you get canned cranberry mold?
No. But we make it.
You make it. Yeah.
It's not the cranberry jelly thing that everybody wants, but no. But my wife makes a mean applesauce. It's actually a family recipe, nice. and she sort of adopted it and makes this. So she was grinding pulpy apples down today. I helped a little bit by doing
what
some
kind
grinding.
of apple does one get? Or the apple brands, not brands, or the, you know how types of apples, like here?
Yeah, the breeds, the strain.
Yeah, like a Granny Smith or a Honey Crisp or whatnot. What kind of apple does one get in the UK?
Well, here on Apple Talk, brought to you by Apple. Brought
to you by Apple, different Apple.
Yes. Do you want to actually know the secret, Dave? You have to use a blend of them, and that's how you get
that would
the
make sense, because you'd want some tart and some sweet.
But
are they the same, like, kind of, are they the same
She
names?
has a cocktail that she uses, and I think she had to adjust it a bit when we came out here. But yeah, it's a bit of a cocktail. I think it's like 3 different kinds of apple.
I make an apple pie, which is a recipe sort of that was taught to me, oddly enough, by my father, who was sort of the pie maker in my family. And it uses East Coast Macintosh apples, which are practically impossible to get in Los Angeles. They either show up sort of after Thanksgiving, or we've had them shipped from the East Coast, which is a giant fucking pain in the ass. But when I have tried to make it with other apples, I don't like it quite as much. It's very geared to the Macintosh. And then, of course, you will read an article that will say, like, the last thing you want to do is make a pie with a Macintosh apple. And yet, you get used to whatever it is you're used to. So that's Thanksgiving to me. I sort of, I like it very specific. Yeah.
Yeah. When he was passing the recipe to you, did he say, and I'm only giving this to you with the trust that you will never spend $2 million on an X-Wing? Did he make that specific? Or
no, luckily he just sort of said, here's the recipe, go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
There was no X-wingable restrictions on it.
Okay.
No.
You're not specifically betraying an oath. No. It's an implied oath that you've.
I'm betraying an oath, but not that. Not an apple pie oath. Yeah, not that. Not that oath, but definitely an oath of some sort. Yes, exactly.
Have you ever done the LA to New York Thanksgiving travel? Have you done that a bunch of times?
We did it. I mean, I used to do it certainly when I first moved out here. I did it all the time, and we used to shoot Seinfeld Wednesday nights, and so we would shoot the Wednesday night of Thanksgiving. That was the start of our break, I guess, basically, because you got to remember we were trying to get 12 done before December, so we were racing to sort of finish. Yeah, so I would shoot and then book the 6 a.m. Thursday morning of Thanksgiving at a time when no one flew on Thanksgiving. Like, you used to get on a 6 a.m. You get on a flight out of LAX, and you could book coach, and you'd have an entire row to yourself.
Yeah, that's cool.
And nowadays, last year we flew on Thanksgiving Day back from Maine. We'd gone to Maine. We thought we were being smart. Like, we'll have Thanksgiving on Wednesday and we'll travel back Thursday morning, and it was it was a zoo. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they said like 80 million people are traveling this year.
It's nuts. I did it once after I moved to LA, and I just said never again, because one year I was like, I'm gonna do Christmas and Thanksgiving. This is when I was single and and all that. I'm gonna do Christmas and Thanksgiving and show everybody that and I was just like, nope, no, not doing that again. So
I guess
did travel once.
Doable. It just none of it's fun. How's that for an answer?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What's new in props here on Apple Talk? I've got something I'd like to start with. Very important to me. Really near and dear to my heart. So some of you may remember, I believe 3 episodes ago, we were talking about prop replicas. And we misidentified a prop replica. You were talking about a neuralizer, and you said it was made by one company, and it turned out it was made by another company. And we had gotten a letter by the owner of the company that made the neuralizer, Factory Entertainment, asking if we could correct that, and we did correct it on the last episode. So now the previous episode, you corrected it very nicely. So. And we had been talking to them about, since we were correcting it and whatnot, how about taking an ad out? And we had talked a little bit about maybe doing a giveaway where they would give us something to give away during one of our live broadcasts, which sort of seemed very interesting. And so I made the joke also on the episode, which was, about, hey, take an ad out. And following up on that episode, we got an email that says, just heard the latest podcast in which Ryan corrected the information about who made our neuralizer replica. This is much appreciated. But was it really necessary for Dave Mandel to immediately undermine it by, in his words, shitting on us for not sponsoring the podcast, especially after I offered free product to do just that? I realized he was just trying to be funny, and a little provocative.
He does that.
And I'm not withdrawing the offer, but it might be nice if one of the guys gave me a call or met me for a cup of coffee in LA so that we could establish a little personal relationship, unless this is really to be a one-off promotion. I guarantee that a lot of listeners are our customers, and that's from the Factory Entertainment. So to address that in no particular order, one, it was necessary. On you because you have beyond that, also, I'm not just being funny and provocative. We are withdrawing the offer, and if you want to have coffee with one of us, you can win an auction with Ryan and have a coffee with him. Go yourself. There you go, sir. Unbelievable. We don't thing from you. If you don't like the show, don't listen to the show. There you go. This is a prop collecting show, and if you want replicas, go somewhere else. There you go. So there's my what's new in props.
There you go.
And I'm not drunk.
Not yet.
No, this has just been this is bothering me for 5 days. So anyway.
Well, there you go. I have something, perhaps cheerier.
Please.
So I've known this for a while, but my line producer, the physical producer of House of the Dragon, is this legend producer named Kevin Delanoy, and he's worked on 1 million films. You can look up his IMDb, everything. Basically, he says hairy, angry men are his specialty. So he's done Braveheart, he's done Last Samurai, basically things with large battles and fields, like that's sort of his thing. He also Titanic, many Chris Nolan movies, Dark Knight Rises. But the first movie, his first job, or maybe his first real job as a official runner that wasn't like a temp, was The Princess Bride.
Oh, wow.
And we've talked quite a bit about the film, and he always speaks very fondly of it because it was his first real experience, but also because of how Rob Reiner really saw in him a young, sort of vibrating talent and kind of took him under his wing, invited him to production meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So he was a runner on the show, but really got kind of full run, if you forgive the pun, of the production. And he's been
runner
clearing out,
sort of being PA sort of ish, is that, or somewhere in between?
Yeah,
okay,
correct.
Gotcha.
That's the old title. I think now they actually do call them PAs again, but runner, exactly, office PA essentially.
Gotcha.
Go run and get coffee, go run and do this, whatever. So he's been cleaning out, old files and trailers, and he's he's got tons of, he has his Titanic manual of all the calculations for the tonnage of the walls of the tank and how much water is going and all. It's that kind of thing, and all in these like handwritten journals. But he said, I have something for you this week. And I came in and he brought out this kind of amazing stuff. So there's a bunch of it. I'm showing one thing because I've identified what this is. I don't yet know what the other things are. So I have to do a bit of research before I come back and report on those. But check this out. Can you see?
Yeah,
back up a little bit.
Is this from the book that he's reading him? Is that what that is?
So that's my best guess, and I have to go back and look at the film, but that's what he said they were. So these are just stats. I mean, one is kind of peeling up, and I looked at the back of it, and it feels like it's a print. I don't think it's the original art. But this would be the storybook pages, and you can see this is the fire swamp, the rodents of unusual size, the pit of despair. And which goes very nicely with my new book, and the spoiler, and the ancient woman, the the old witch, and they're really lovely, and they have a bit of like kind of mildew damage, but I'm going to see if the paper cleaner that Propstore works with out here can do a little magic, and then I'll probably just frame them up. But they're really beautiful, and there's some other very cool stuff. I just want to figure out exactly what it is so I can kind of report on it. All paper stuff.
I don't think I'm trying to remember. And oddly enough, I had the movie on in the background, but I wasn't like, it was like on, but I was doing stuff. You know what I mean? But I was enjoying listening to it. I don't remember. I'm not sure you ever really see any of that in the book, but obviously it doesn't mean it wasn't there. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it makes camera, but that's still really cool. I'm not sure.
His memory was that the book was a dummy, so the book was not The Princess Bride, but they had dummied in pages, right? Chapter headings, but I don't know. I don't know that they ever actually made the cut of the film, and that's what I'm investigating with this other stuff because there's other artwork that I got that looks familiar, but I'm not sure that it's in the film, but it was clearly made for it. So I'm going to kind of do that investigation. But very neat. I was very grateful for it. I mean, what a surprise to walk into.
Super cool. Yeah,
really cool.
That is excellent.
And then we kind of have a third what's new in props today before we continue
it actually
our
sort of connects.
interview with Bill.
The Princess Bride connects it actually in a very good way.
There you go.
Because as you hinted at, you won the Princess Bride, the book, Count Rugen's torture book from the Pit of Despair, which was in day one of the big Propstore auction brought to you by Heritage. And we had a bunch of auctions, actually, just to kind of go through. I was going to start, speaking of Heritage, brought to you by Propstore. They had the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers auction, which raised a couple of $1 million, made a couple of $1 million. Looked like it was $3 million and change. Obviously, you and I did not actually buy anything in the auction, but I spoke a little bit with our intrepid... what's the word I'm looking for? Mighty Morphin Power Ranger generational,
Mighty Morphin expert.
Yes, generational representative. And he said that
he explained both TikTok and Power Rangers to us.
And I told him what magazines were.
You did,
yeah, and what a rotary phone was. He said he did very well. He said he got basically everything
That's
he was
amazing.
trying to get, which was good. He said that some pieces did go big, like that robot thing we were looking at. Definitely went
the transforming studio scale
that thing was, I think, over $50,000.
Wow,
so that was a number, a real number. And there were definitely some good numbers. It did sound like by the end there were some single costumes, or even maybe some lots where people were able to buy like a single costume for like, under $2,000, and like almost like on a cosplay level, like where people are able to just buy stuff and whatever. So it sounded like the big collectors were able to get what they wanted, and the casual fan was able to get a piece. I don't know. It sounds like a bit of a success to me. I again have no idea what they were looking for, but
what the expectation was.
Seemed interesting, but he was able to get what he was going for. It did sound like there were so many of those monsters that we were looking at that we probably could have grabbed one had we really wanted one, but. Yeah, such as
good Comic-Con disguise, Dave.
No, exactly. You're wandering around in one of those things. I bet very hot and sweaty.
Yeah, sweaty.
Very sweaty. So that was kind of exciting that all happened. And oddly enough, which I happened to be, I popped in for a minute. And on the day 2, it was the anniversary of the death of that guy Tommy, the Green Range, the one we kept talking about, whatever,
Yeah.
because he had passed away a couple of years ago. Forgive me, I don't know the actual date, but oddly enough, the auction corresponded with it, and they had a moment of silence, which was very nice. And I thought,
Oh, that's great.
yeah, actually a very nice thing. So anyway, I thought that was very cool, wherever that fits in. But and then the Propstore auction, of which I think you and we both ended up with a little something, but not much of anything. I mean, and I don't mean to belittle. I mean, I think your piece is fantastic, but it was not your goal, I guess.
No. Yeah. My day one was well, I called the pit of despair. It was I was the underbidder on the two big things that I chased, and I was kind of depressed about it. I wasn't intending to chase the book. After I chased both the Fury Road Mask, which I bid up quite a bit more than I actually wanted to, so part of me is not unhappy that it went somewhere else, and then the mask just kind of went
partially relieved when you're the underbidder, like, oh
yes,
thank God,
thank God that's over. And then the mask, the Wesley mask, I also went after that, and also was the underbidder, and actually had a friend of the podcast, Caitlin Monahan, sitting next to me going, go ahead, bid higher, the whole time. And I was like, what's happening here? So the movie's very near and dear to us, and it just wasn't meant to be. It just wasn't meant to be. And but you and I kind of chatted live as it was going on, because I knew you sort of had the book in the back of your head. I sort of had the book in the back of my head, and I just like, where are you? And then I ended up bidding on it. And actually winning after a couple of bids. So I think I actually got a very good deal on the book for what it is.
Oddly reasonable. It was oddly reasonable in a good way. And I liked it. I don't have a great answer. I liked it. You know, if someday you go, I'm getting rid of it, sure, I'll look at it, whatever. But I was like, and that was, for me, I guess, at the end of the day,
thing. Yeah.
Right. For me, there was just a lot of things that I thought were really interesting that I didn't like the prices of, or they whether the bidding got there, whether the starting bid was too high for me, which was just something I felt like was happening a bunch. And by the way, it wasn't so much the number; it was the number converted into dollars that was really, when every time I would look at something and go, that's not bad, and then would go, wait a second, and put it into XE.com.
There's a lot of math required, because you actually have to do math twice, because you have to do times 26% or times 1.26, and then you have to do times again this time, because that's where the exchange rate is sitting. You do times 1.26 again to figure out what it is in dollars, and that adds up real quick. And then tax and it's just there's a lot involved with bidding these days, and as the numbers go higher, it drags the whole percentage goes with it, so it's like factorial the way that your final invoice rises.
Yeah, there was just a lot of stuff I really did like the look of, but just didn't ultimately either bid, or I'm trying to remember what I bid on that I was on the phone for, and just let go by. Again, I was interested in things, but again, just nothing for me, I guess, at the end of the day, when push came to shove, nothing was I have to have. I guess that's the honest answer.
Did you end up actually bidding on anything that ended up going high?
The one thing that I was interested in, well, again, things I was interested in, like I was very interested, I was on the phone for the Raiders, the staff, Belloc's staff,
that was a great
which
piece,
I really did like. And nobody bid, including me.
Right.
And I sort of let it go. And then in the after auction, I was kind of I was thinking about making an offer, and I went back and forth and back and forth. And then I think they got another offer, which sort of eliminated my opportunity to go a lot lower, which is where I was looking to go lower. And when that went away, I never even made the offer. I just said, no, keep going. Someone else wanted it. And it did look like things moved in that after auction section. Again, I don't know what numbers or time frame or whatever. So, good on them for moving the stuff. But just things that I just felt were, I don't know, a lot overpriced. I don't know, for my taste. I don't know what else to say. The only thing I lost out, I bid on I'm trying to remember if it was day 3 or day 4. I did bid for a bit on the Soggy Bottom Boy album from Oh Brother Where Art Thou, because I have the Dapper Dan. I have a Dapper Dan tin. I thought those would go nicely together. And it wasn't outrageous, but again, it was like it went past what I was thinking, and then when again it was like all of a sudden it turned into a over $5,000 item, and I was just not so interested. As it closed in on whatever. The piece I did grab for a little bit for fun and a little bit of, I guess, a bit of a problem, but I did always want something, and I have. Anyway, I'll cut to the chase. I actually ended up winning at a very lower, somewhat reasonable number. I won the Lex Luthor cravat from the end of Superman that Gene Hackman wears, and I actually have. Hackman has occasionally been doing these autograph signings, and I got him to do a Lex Luthor. I had him do a Lex Luthor autograph for me. I did a Lex Luthor and a conversation, and I don't do a lot of autographs, but I Gene Hackman. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I grabbed the Lex Luthor piece, and I don't know. I will put it up, and I'll kind of put it next to my crystal because I have a Superman crystal, and I think they'll look nice together. And it was relatively reasonable in the grand scheme of things. It was a couple grand, so
yeah,
I don't know. But I don't know. We've said this before, and I think it's something they need to pay attention to. Ultimately, it did look like things sold in the sort of the next day, the make an offer sort of thing. But they definitely had
lots has gone after the fact.
Yeah, they definitely had a bunch of passes. It seemed like they were kind of around the 70% mark, which is, I don't know. It just feels like, and I get it. It's like you want the consignor to be. Well, you want the consignor to consign, I guess, is the honest answer.
I think they're the real answer. They're stuck in a rock and a hard place, and I think they've seen other things. Because I saw the guys a bit after, and I talked to them about it, and it's just like we know that if we say no to the reserve, it will end up in one of our competitor auctions. Right. Probably at that reserve because everybody wants great material, and I think there still are things that they do turn away because the reserves are so cuckoo that they just know it's not a win for anybody. It's just another story about it.
But unfortunately, someone will take it,
and carry it and let it pass. You also let it pass there. So I think that's the thing that they're weighing up, where they're doing we do think. It's a high reserve, but we do think that there's a better than not chance that it will move or that we can move it afterwards or whatever. And I think it's with those really outlandish reserves. There's another big piece coming up soon that was offered to them that is now in a different auction that just the reserve was so crazy and so kind of unprecedented too. Like there's no precedent for it. That they just thought it was just going to be a lot of work, promo work, and then probably not bear fruit in the end. And I think that's what we're dealing with now is the prices have gone up, but the markets are softer. I think the global economy, we have multiple wars going on. The free flow of money that probably was, or the freer flow of money that was going on a couple of years ago during COVID when everybody was locked inside and bored, it just isn't that way anymore. And just people have kind of moved on from that stuff and they're thinking about different things. So I think the hardcore collectors are still buying, and the great stuff that's fresh to market. We saw the Marauders map do really well. Things that we have never seen before from big titles. And that had a nice
combination, I assume, of both. We've never seen one, and obviously the charity element. But that was an even higher number than I was. I was expecting a high number, but boy, that was a high number.
Yes, and David actually, I don't know if you saw, but he came to the auction and spoke before the lot.
Oh, so I didn't.
Yeah, it was nice it was nice and sad, and to hear his story and everything. But I think that nudged it along. But it was also a great piece from a great franchise that no one had ever seen before. So I think that that did really well. The Stormtrooper helmet sold, but now somebody's gone home with a headless Stormtrooper because the rest of the kit didn't sell because it was there thinking that if we break this up, a bunch of people have Stormtrooper helmets. There are also a bunch of people who want probably only a Stormtrooper helmet, not necessarily the whole thing, that maybe we can mix and match. And I think just at the end of the day, the ask for all of that was just a bit too high. I don't think they're, look, I'm sure they wish everything sold, on the day and got action. I think they feel like we're settling into more of the the commodity auction kind of cycle where you set your watch. It used to be there was one of these a year, and it was an event, and everybody waited for the Propstore auction
Right.
and saved their money and whatever. But now there's 3 a year, and I think they're sort of like we're still selling more props per year than we ever have. And it's just like there are going to be more passes. You offer more lots, there are going to be more passes, and that's sort of the way it goes. So I don't think it's changing a big way how they're approaching the future. But certainly, it's a commentary on a combination of the value or the perceived value that these things have gotten to, a lot of these things, and how that's kind of, I think, walling off a lot of buyers because not everybody has the disposable income to chase these things to those levels, and also just the state of the kind of global collector economy and where it is right now in 2024.
I guess I just was sort of, and again, look, obviously, when you have a collection, you get, I think as we certainly move forward, we get pickier and pickier and pickier as just to speak for a second of two individuals. What we are looking for is very specific. We like certain movies, we like certain things, but obviously what we're looking for is very specific. And so when you get a catalog that doesn't have quite what you're looking for, that's always going to just be, and maybe that was what this was a bit, certainly for me, where I liked everything a bit, but nothing a lot. And that was, and again, that's just, going to hit me one day the way, it'll hit you sometimes too, where you're just nothing you're looking for. But then, like I said, the numbers, like even my desire, the sort of I have to scratch the itch, I want to bid on something, the numbers weren't helping me. So it just, that was sort of a little bit of my sum up, but hey, Lex Luthor cravat. So there you go.
Yeah. I also, Dave, I bought the Screen Match Batman folder, the Bruce Wayne folder.
The Bruce Wayne folder from the morgue.
Because that was just neat. I think that'll frame really well in a sort of box frame, and it'll look cool. And
you paint the file cabinet yellow. Paint the file cabinet yellow. I think that's going to be really good. Yeah. Paint the file cabinet yellow. But and then on to the next auction. We've got the exciting the big heritage auction. You're going to go see the ruby slippers in London, which I'm jealous
excited.
of. Yeah,
I'm excited.
They didn't come to L.A. Isn't that funny? They New York and obviously Dallas, but and then I think London and Tokyo. L.A. did not get the ruby slippers, but
I guess in L.A. they figure that at the Academy Museum they're just so rarely out and on display that it's I still have yet to see them there. In the times that I've been in. So, but I don't know. I don't know what the thing
I only
was.
saw them years ago before they built the museum. So I saw them at that preview thing or whatever. I don't remember what the hell it was.
Great.
Yeah, which was wonderful.
Yeah, and they were like,
so I saw them there
in the wall behind glass.
And I've seen the Smithsonian ones. So I've seen them both, but it would have been very cool to, film and touch them, and you're going to wear them, right? You're going to put them on. Yeah.
Totally. I'm jamming my size 10.5s in there. I don't care. I don't care what they say.
They're covered in real rubies. No, that's what
I understand.
That's what the thieves thought. But anyway,
that's it. Yeah, that's what I'm going to be yelling as I run out the door in them. Click.
And click, how you would know that they're not covered in real rubies? By looking at a 4K, looking at a 4K, a 4K screening of The Wizard of Oz. And speaking of 4K.
Dazzled.
What do you think about this?
This is very good.
Like this steering. Speaking of 4K, we've got the part 2 of our incredible interview with Bill Hunt from Digital Bits, the premier 4K physical media review site. I placed such a big order of 4K discs because the Black Friday sale is really good. So all these discs are like 50% off. So I kind of did just go through the 2 asterisks list, and just anything with 2 asterisks that was like $10 I just bought, which is just madness.
Great. Did you buy a 4K player?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Nor do I have a 4K TV. So we're good other than that. Yeah. I'm just stocking up. Stocking up. Yeah.
Your priorities are totally in order. Yeah.
Just stocking up, getting ready. Yeah.
Very good.
Very good. That did not come up in part 2 of our interview with Bill Hunt.
No.
Digital Bits. Yeah. But no, I'm all in on the 4K. I'm big, just pushing in my chips. Yeah. Yeah. just a very lonely person looking to buy things after he didn't win anything at the auction except a cravat. Yeah. So yeah.
But Dave, I also, good news for you. There is a monkey radiator cap on its way, it's winging its way to Los Angeles.
I was very excited.
For you.
It went through so many hands. It has been touched by more high-end prop collectors than your average high-end prop. But I think I might be getting it tonight. I think Chuck has it now, so I think it's coming my way tonight. So
we'll send a picture. We can do it around the world.
I think
it appeared a rather boozy get together. So I think there was some worship of the golden idol of the monkey going on.
I got the sense that a lot of people were much more impressed by it. Like, and of course, some people commented that they thought it was a joke, that they didn't really exist until they actually saw it. That they thought it was some sort of strange runner. When really the main runner of the show is just factory entertainment. But anyway.
There you go. More free advertising. Let's bring on Bill Hunt.
Bill Hunt.
If you really think about where everything is headed technology-wise, I mean, we're not far from the singularity in terms of people having a movie. You don't have to be a rich guy with a giant basement to have a movie theater.
Yeah.
The idea of having, because TV technology is getting so much better, so much thinner, and so much cheaper as a result. If you have a disc player and a sound bar and a place to hang an 80-inch television, which is now suddenly not just for the upper crust, you can have a movie theater in your house. And I feel like people are going to want this stuff. And I will tell you, anybody listening to this, I'm a huge advocate of streaming has its place. Love streaming. I've all the streamer subscriptions. I buy and rent movies from the Apple Digital Store all the time. There is no substitute for the physical disc in terms of the quality that it puts through your television. I can run it back to back on the same hardware through the Apple TV and then put on the disc, and there's just the sound in particular, that's the most noticeable one, because I feel like that's the one that you don't even need to do the side by side. You can just hear the difference, because the amount of data stored on that disc versus what they're willing to put down the pipeline, and it's not the quality of the file, it's the compression that happens between them and you that kills the sort of stuff that excites all of us home theater people. The things the extra bullets whizzing past and the extra pixels that we love to see on our big screens.
What I find makes a difference. For example, take a movie like Top Gun Maverick. That was a great streaming experience, right? But when you see the 4K disc, the imagery just gets so much more dimensional. Like, you can see the depth in the image. You can see the color is more nuanced and bolder, and it's a more vivid experience. And you're right, it's crazy. When I started the digital bits, I mean, we were talking like 4:3 television and analog SD and Dolby stereo. And in just 20 years, we've seen a massive shift. 25 years now, we've seen a massive, massive shift in the capability of bringing home theater to the home. And you can now, for under $1,000 all in, easily, you can have a home like a studio quality experience. You're looking at, when you're looking at 4K, of course, you're looking at something that is very, very close to what the studio master looks like. And some of these films the most extraordinary thing to me is when you have a film that you've loved your entire life and you saw it first when you were a teenager, probably on cable, or maybe if you were lucky to go to a movie theater, to see these movies now in 4K, it's like seeing them again for the first time.
Yeah,
I'll never forget that. Like, Vim Wenders' Wings of Desire is a film that I really love. And on the 4K disc, he talks about how, part of that movie, most of that movie's in black and white, and then it becomes color later.
Color at the end, yeah.
But to deliver both black and white and color in the same negative was like wizardry technology for the theatrical experience. So when you went and saw that movie in a theater, and you were looking at the black and white, the imagery you were seeing was literally like 5 or 6 generations away from the original camera negative. And now with 4K, of course, they can scan the original negative and color time it digitally, and you're seeing first generation everything. And the clarity is it's astonishing sometimes, what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I had that experience this year with, I have to plug and boost Arrow and their work. Yeah. Conan the Barbarian, which is one of my very favorite films. I've seen it more times than I care to share in this podcast. That transfer to me is a reference quality in terms of how you take an old film and put it out on disc. And there might be ones that are better or more, considered more, I don't know, crisp and clear, but watching that movie, it somehow ran right down that middle rail of, it was a completely analog film, an analog experience, but you saw it in a way that you'd never seen it before. The depth of the color and the quality and the image quality, without it feeling like you were in this alien sort of AI digital experience. And the thing, their film grain was still there. The imperfections that were part of the movie making process, but otherwise it was perfect. And the sound, the sound is just, the Atmos track is just like that Basil Polidor soundtrack, like almost shook the house down.
And what I love too now is what they're doing with the Atmos tracks is they're giving you the benefits of Atmos, but they're still retaining the sonic character of the original, sometimes more limited audio mixes from the day. But they're also including those original audio mixes in lossless quality on the disc in a lot of cases. So you can still have an experience. It's very authentic to, you can imagine it's what the director, when he was sitting down to review the film, it was the kind of experience he had in the studio projection room or whatever. It's really something.
Well, let's talk about that.
I was about to say, this raises the question that haunts me a little bit in terms of my 4K shopping, and I'll preface it with, in my mind, when I get a 4K, part of me wants it to be the perfect version of what I think the theater experience was. And obviously we all remember things a little bit differently. Having listened to some really interesting interviews with some of the Criterion guys and whatnot, obviously sometimes as they go to put stuff together, they're finding things. Sometimes, they're trying to find things, whatever. Sometimes you get a director in there and he's trying to fix things that he didn't like in the original, and he's not necessarily going, or he or she is not going for trying to get back to the original theatrical experience. And obviously we're getting into technology and whatnot. And look, Cameron is we talked a little bit about this off camera. He's the one where, sometimes it's just baffling, his dislike of the film grain, which of course, I don't know, I love. So there are movies where you buy them and I'm just like, what the fuck what did I just buy here? What am I looking at? Where it's the experience I wanted. It seems like a different movie. And that's a tough one. And I guess I'm looking for guidance, but also, you do a great job of calling that out. Obviously, you can't sometimes do it until the movie is itself out. But do you think that's getting any better? Is there hope? Because, it's like the dream, of course, and I sit here with 2 giant cabinets of DVDs and Blu-rays that I'd just love to. I'd like to throw something in the garbage. My laser discs are in a storage unit. If anyone is interested in my laser discs, I've got the From Russia with Love with the band commentary on it. I've got some good ones. Lord knows they may all be green with laser rot, but I'd like to throw something out. And yet constantly it's like the new 4K comes out and it's like, oh, they decided to do that. Now it's and that's the part that haunts me as a consumer.
It is incredibly tricky, and that is half of what we do at the website, is telling people, okay, here's what they've done, here's how they've done it, here's why it turned out that way. It's complicated, right? Because with a lot of these films, you can only get an image as good as the negative, or as good as the best piece of film that still exists.
Right, because often they don't have the negative. Sometimes they only have like a couple of generations pass,
Correct. And then if you think about like that period from the 90s into the early aughts, that was when digital intermediate first appeared, right? So there are a lot of films that only exist in, basically it's the equivalent of 2K. And you can sometimes upsample that for 4K, and you can take advantage of deep color, for example, and the deeper production quality that's embedded in the original source that you didn't see on Blu-ray. And a perfect example of that is like season 1 of Game of Thrones. The resolution that they shot in was lower than what you would expect, but when they upsampled that for 4K, it was astonishing the extra amount of quality they were able to find.
It was there. Fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah, deeper color and higher bit rates than on the original source material, that kind of thing. But so you're frequently limited by that. sometimes you're limited by budget. Sometimes you're limited by who's available to supervise the transfer.
Right.
And is there a filmmaker who's still alive? Is there a camera person who's still alive who can verify, yes, this is what we intended to do. This is how we meant for it to look. And the other problem is sometimes the human memory, we all think that, oh, I know exactly how that movie looked. I remember it looked like this when I saw it in a movie theater. But the human beings can't remember color very well like that. And so what tends to happen is your memories of, well, this movie looked like this when I saw it in the theater in 1982. What you're really remembering is an amalgamation of every experience you've had on VHS, broadcast, DVD, Laserdisc, right? And so you're very, very influenced by whatever the last version you bought. This is what it looked like on Blu-ray or whatever it might have been. Yeah. And so this is what it looked like on DVD. And so there's that going on too. And so it's this really complicated thing. And then plus, obviously, remastering technology is moving so fast, especially now with AI. And what is the right, in the early Blu-ray days, for example, we were upset about digital noise reduction or edge enhancement, too much edge enhancement, right? Or, because of the way films were scanned and the color space, a lot of these Blu-ray releases came out and they were teal, or they were, something that where the color was weirdly off. And but as the technology gets better and better, that question keeps, what is the proper procedure for the use of this technology or that technology? And every filmmaker, we have to remember this isn't technically a science. I mean, obviously it's technology, and obviously there's optics and physics involved, but this is also art, right? And so every filmmaker is going to have their own approach and their own feeling. And Cameron obviously stands out as being very, very an outlier in terms of the use of AI. And I don't want my films to look like I think in Cameron's mind, Terminator looked like crap when he first released it because the technology was only so good, the budget was only so good, and he imagines that film in his head being much clearer and cleaner and more perfect. And so now he can make them that way. And so these are.
And I guess that is where I hit a wall.
But also to mixed results. Like I just think I think there's a certain amount of that where you're like, okay, I get reducing grain, but not at the cost of the underlying image.
Correct.
And I actually watched. I was home alone last night, so I had not seen the 4K of The Thing yet, so I fired that up and watched it. It was glorious. I mean, just glorious. And again, the perfect sort of meeting of those things where it looked like an analog image, but it was super crisp and clear, and it was the way you imagine the original Studio Master looking before it loses a generation when they put it out on film and then project it up on a screen with cigarette burn-ins and all that in the dark. And then I was like, okay, well, it's been a while because I watched Aliens and sort of I didn't hate it, but I also understood what everybody was getting at. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to fire that up. So right back to back, I just threw that in a disc from a very similar era, shot in the
darkness. That's what I was thinking. It's the darkness,
and that's shot on the same format, right? Probably both Super 35, right? So it was so they should be of a piece, and then the difference is jarring,
and the difference is it was jarring. Like I watched 15 minutes of it, the med-lab sequence, and I was just, again, it's not like, oh, I'm throwing this out, I'm never watching it again, but it guts me because that they have the capability, particularly with that film, there's enough left of that film to do the Thing version or the Conan the Barbarian version, and Cameron chose not to give us that. Yeah. And that's a bummer. So I mean, we remember,
but I don't think he is alone. I do think there are directors that are getting into whatever that room is. I don't know if it's a DI room or whatever you want, whatever room it is, whether they're the color or whatever. But they are purposely trying to fix, as you said, like they have a vision of what the movie was in their head that isn't necessarily the movie. And then, you're naming effects movies, Ryan, but I went and saw, I think, Ryan, I said this to you. I told you when the 4K of Chinatown came out, we went to a screening at the Academy. So we watched it projected. I haven't watched it in my house. But talk about cleaning up a movie so it's absolutely beautiful, and yet at no point is it never not a movie from 1970, whatever year it was. You know what I mean?
It has that texture of grain, and
it has grain, and yet it is beautiful. It looks like they struck a new print. Yes, it is imperfect, and that is okay.
In the best way.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Chinatown's glorious
Yeah.
example.
And it's funny too, because at the same time, we also have to remember, like, how you were talking, for example, about how the experience of looking at what we're seeing now back to DVD, right? And the analog SD and all that kind of stuff. We forget how long, I mean, in this country, NTSC television, analog broadcasting, was around for 50 years.
Yeah.
And the reason is because for most people, it was good enough. And even today, it's still, I don't know how many people have 4K TVs and they're still looking at standard definition content, right? I mean, some people
please, if I show my father a 4K image, he thinks I'm from the future. Do you know what I mean? like it's literally you would. I think you'd have a small heart attack. Like if you walked in and saw how my parents watch television, like what their systems are, what they're like. They still have a VHS plugged in. I mean,
Dave, that's the reason they don't know that you bought an X-wing.
Well, so they have no internet. They have no internet. They have no internet.
In harmony. Yeah. These are necessary, both necessary.
That's outstanding. But the times have changed. But I'll tell you one thing, just so that people are watching this, and for you guys as well. One of the things we do on the website, in addition to reviewing as many discs as we can and calling out these things, we have a thing called the 4K Ultra HD release list that we update every day with when new things get announced or are rumored and things like that. And when we review the disc, we have a little indication, like if something is very good quality, we put like a little asterisk, and if it's reference quality, we put 2 asterisks. So you can go through that whole list, and if you look at just the 2 asterisk titles,
those are the ones. Those are the ones.
Titles, and they're that's a very easy place to go.
That's excellent. Do you do end of the year lists? Do you do do you do faves? Like if I said to you, forget about what's on the site, even like right now, do you have 10 favorite 4Ks right now that you would say are just like
I mean, here's the thing, we used to do that all the time, and we used to also do did a digital Bitsy awards and all that kind of stuff. The problem is so much stuff is coming out, it's hard to keep track now,
right?
And if you ask me next month, today, what my favorite 10 4K titles are, I will give you a list, and if you ask me 2 months from now, half those titles will be different. Right. And
what are some of your all-time faves right now? You don't have to give 10, and we will not judge it against the ones that are not on the list. What are just some faves? If somebody has been avoiding it, let's go this way. If someone has been avoiding 4K and they're just like, fuck it, I just bought a new TV and now is the time. What are some essentials that you just feel like you have to have? Yeah. How's that for a way of approaching it? Yeah.
I start with Blade Runner. For me, it starts with Blade Runner. That 4K of the final cut is so fantastic. And then you look at films like Jaws. You look at the recent Once Upon a Time in the West transfer that Paramount.
Oh yes.
Alien and new things like Blade Runner 2049 and Dune Part 1 and 2 are extraordinary. The Top Gun Maverick disc was extraordinary. And then you throw back to all kinds of older stuff, right? I mean, the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy that Kino Lorber Studio Classics put out was magnificent. I mean,
is that the Alec Guinness one or the Thomas Alfredson one?
The Thomas Alfredson one, the more recent one. And I mentioned Wings of Desire. I'm excited that Criterion is starting to put out 4Ks of some of the Kurosawa stuff. Seven Samurai and Yojimbo and Joro are coming. Yeah, and the interesting thing is I saw the new 4K transfer of Seven Samurai up at the the Egyptian. The American Cinematheque.
It was kind of playing around town.
Yeah.
When was that? Like around the end of August, beginning of September, something like that?
Yeah, exactly. And I went and saw that with a friend, and that was astonishing. And the interesting thing is Toho was, the Japanese were kind of notorious for not really preserving some of those negatives well. So a lot of the original negatives are gone. But even, whatever source that they used is still better than anything I've ever seen. Right. And it's remarkable. So I could make a huge list. I could make a Pacific, something that I think it's only a 2K upsample, but Pacific Rim,
Guillermo del Toro's
Pacific Rim, the HDR on that title is just astonishing. The color and it's so this is a thing I could talk about all the time. I could make you a master list, but what I would say is look at the 4K Ultra HD release list.
Look for those two asterisks and those single asterisks. Yeah.
Those are all absolute, like, just jaw-dropping reference titles, and they're all worth checking out.
I mentioned it before, but I will say again, it's not just the picture. it's the sound, and that's the thing that's on that disc that is no Blu-ray, certainly no DVD sounds like that, because the amount of information they're able to cram on that disc.
Yeah.
And I will say Dune, which you mentioned, those movies are so goddamn loud that I have a here at the house, it's a Sonos Arc with the sub, so it's, you know, it's a very nice sound system, but this is not a home theater with, you know, 7.1 in the walls and whatever. This is a normal sort of consumer level sound system.
Plug it in and put them here and here. Yeah.
Put it in and we have the 2 satellites too. You cannot turn that movie down because the bass is so freaking loud when you have the Atmos sub. I had my wife come downstairs 3 times to tell me turn it down. I was like, I can't turn it down anymore. I can't hear the dialogue. You cannot turn that, man. It's just it's an earthquake. And
when I saw that in the theater, when the sandworm, like when he's going to ride the sandworm and it just comes, it roars in and plunges into the dune right underneath him. It sounds like a jet engine screaming in, right? And it's like, I can't not have that. I mean, my whole house is shaking. I've got like 9.2 point, you know, I've got the full Atmos overheads and surround backs and all of that. And it's just like, you can't not have that. It's extraordinary. And to have that lossless audio, that's the thing too, is we go back to like, you think about music releases, think about like Talking Heads Stop Making Sense that just came out in 4K. That's got an Atmos mix in it. To have that music in lossless audio is just, it's so terrific. It's such a, I mean, it's like, you know, you put these movies in and you start watching and you just turn into a kid again. It's like, it's extraordinary.
Well, what's coming up that you're excited about that either we do know about or we don't know about, and as much as you can say?
I do want to hear that really quickly though. Has anyone done yet? Have the Ealing comedies like Kind Hearts and Coronets? Is that on anyone's list for 4K?
I don't think,
because those were criterions at some point. Those were criterions.
I feel like the man in the white suit is around, Dave.
It might be. I'd have to think about that. I do think a lot of that stuff will start to show up. Kino Lorber, I mean, all these different companies are Eureka. They're all doing a lot of BFIs, starting to do their own 4Ks and stuff now. So stay tuned, because I have a feeling a lot of that stuff is
on my mind to ask. So what's coming down the pike that you're excited about, or like what's really exciting? Yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to the Tarantino stuff. I'm really looking forward to the right stuff. I'm looking forward to a few things that I know are coming from 20th Century Studios that haven't been announced yet, and I can't really talk about them yet. But it's 2 or 3 of my all-time favorite films I know are being worked on for 4K.
Great. Okay.
Yeah,
I just saw a thing about the other day about Fight Club. But they sort of announced the 4K, but they also said nothing about it or when it's coming or whatever. And Fincher is sort of notorious. Sort of said it's
coming, but maybe sometime in the next 10 years. It was
Fincher takes his time. He takes his sweet time to work on his transfers. And obviously they just did Zodiac, right? Just came out from Paramount in 4K. He's been working on Seven for quite a while. For almost 2 years, I think he's been working on that. And that was actually supposed to come out like late this year. And then Warner Brothers, you know, there were pre-orders up for box sets, and then Warner Brothers stopped all those and said, okay, sorry for the delay. It's coming. It'll be next year, but it's definitely coming. But Fight Club is definitely on the list of things that I think are being looked at, and they may have started working on already. There's next year is going to be very, very cool. I can tell you that there's stuff I know. This is the thing, is like because people tell me everything, you know, I hear everything, and whether from a studio executive or filmmakers or from people working in the trenches on this stuff. So I have a list that I maintain of it used to be about 50 films. Now it's almost 100 films that I know are right now being worked on or in various stages of production for 4K. And I've learned that, like, there's times I can talk about them and times I can't, because sometimes if you talk about those things too early, what'll happen is a filmmaker who hasn't maybe been called yet will hear about it.
That's funny.
And get really upset, or their manager or their agent will see, oh, this movie's coming. So then when the studio or the little boutique label wants to go contact the filmmaker and say, hey, we'd like you to do an audio commentary, that guy's thinking, ooh, okay, we're gonna charge maximum, you know, coin for that. So you've got to be careful. There's so much stuff that I could just blow out and go, here's a list of amazing films that are absolutely coming. And if I did, half of those things could be in jeopardy, and so I have to be very, very.
We got it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I haven't been more excited in a long time for 4K, especially since the pandemic. The stuff I know is being worked on right now for 4K is stuff that everybody wants. the stuff that everybody really, really wants. And I can tell you, I don't know for sure about Tombstone, but damn it, I keep pushing that. I keep
It's a shock that they haven't even just licensed it out, because you know that one will sell. You know that one will sell.
And and I feel like, there's the George P. Cosmatos, the director's cut that was sort of on the Vista series disc with a little extra stuff. I feel like I know there's more in the can. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff they just never shot, because
the
I mean,
Kurt
I'm sure
Russell cut.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what I would love to see at some point, because I'm sure have you read the original screenplay?
Yeah.
The original screenplay for that film is just magnificent, right? It's like 30% of that they didn't shoot.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of it they did. I have a couple of DVDs full of dailies. And so I know there are stuff that they did. So that's
around that
there's a really good,
because Kevin Jarre got fired so early that the script just changed so quickly that you know that script is wonderful. It's like 180 pages. It's wonderful. But
it's one of the best scripts I've ever read. It's astonishing. But that's a movie that I would really love to see. And the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven is one that I would really, really love to see. And as I mentioned, Master and Commander. There's and
that was such an early Blu-ray thing. I remember one of the very earliest sort of reference quality Blu-rays was that director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven that nobody had seen at that point, because they never released it in the theater. The theatrical was like cut down by 50 minutes, unwatchable.
Oh
yeah,
you
miss all the details. And
it was
the movie's
also
glorious.
the first time I remember people going, it's so much it was like, it's this director's cut and it is so much better. It's not little bits and pieces. It's a different movie. It is a different feel.
I'll never forget going to that. I saw an early screening of that movie, and I remember thinking, coming out of it going, God, that's like, I know that should be a great movie. Like, intellectually, I believe there's a great movie there. We just didn't see it all. And then sure enough, when they did the director's cut, it's like, oh my God, there it is. Like, that's a masterpiece.
They didn't even include why he left home. And it's just like, and he just goes, oh, his wife died.
Yeah.
Taking out things you can't tell us, or removing them from your own brain. Is there a movie that isn't on the schedule that for you would be a dream movie that they should do? Like, if you could pick one or two movies that and again, it doesn't have to be Tombstone, but just like an all-time fave. It can be personal. It can be whatever the reason is that you would love to see them do. That, well, as far as you know, Tombstone's up there. Yeah,
Tombstone's
we think and hope they're doing it. Okay.
Open Range is a film that I have really come to love. I think that's one of the best westerns, one of the best modern westerns in the last sort of 30 years. Along with, I think Hell or High Water is another terrific one, which is out in 4K.
Right.
But like those two, I would really like to see a lot more of the Akira Kurosawa stuff out. I would kill, and I think these are actually going to come. I would kill to see Kubrick's Barry Lyndon in 4K. Because that's such a stunning film, and HDR might not even really be appropriate for that movie, but just to see that in 4K would be remarkable.
It's always the last of the format. They always do.
Yeah.
And 2001,
Eyes Wide
Shining,
Shut as well, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Lolita. There's obviously Lolita's not available yet.
Yeah.
And I do believe those are coming. I know I know the intention is to whether they come from Warner Brothers or whether Criterion does them or whatever. Right. Here's a Holy Grail title that is a little kind of surprising maybe, but I would love to see the Fleischer Superman series in actual.
Oh my gosh, yes, that would be incredible.
Because here's the thing, they did a brand new 4K, beautiful brand new 4K scan and restoration of those, so it exists. But then when they released it on Blu-ray, they accidentally put it on like a BD25,
right,
and compressed the heck out of it.
Everything.
So it's
yes, people lost their minds.
I certainly did. And then there are people who said, "Oh no, it's great," but it's like no, that disc. I know even people inside the studio said, "Yeah, that we kind of like it's not what we wanted it to be. There were mistakes made." But I really, really would love to see, and I think that might happen, is a 4K of that. And another one. I might be the only person who just truly loves this movie, but the Wachowskis' Speed Racer.
Oh, okay.
But that would look incredible in 4K. Yeah. I mean, just the colors and whatnot. Yeah, that would look great.
I mean, and it's such an interesting film. I mean, that to me is the first time that I think a live action film has really captured the feel of anime and animation. Right, it's almost a Cubist film, really, like the way they, with the Liechtenstein pop art, people panning, and so I have a real love of that film. I'd love to see that in 4K. There's a ton of stuff, but I can tell you for sure that next year there are a bunch of those kind of titles are coming.
I'm very excited. Can I grab onto the home video nerd third rail with both hands here and ask the question that's been asked a million times since 1997? Are we ever going to see the original Star Wars trilogy?
I can answer that. The evening that he dies, I believe they will announce it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Because here's the interesting thing: there are, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're familiar with 4K 77 and 4K 83, the fan effort, and I know within the industry there has been an effort to scan in 4K. There are I don't think Disney themselves has done it, but a lot of other people have done it. Even within the industry, there are restorations of those things. I think we will see them eventually, but I think you're exactly right. I think you're exactly right, Dave. It's when he's gone, like a year or two later, that's when somebody will go, "Hey."
Oh, I see. I don't think a year. I'm thinking like 2 hours. Like George Lucas is dead.
They're on the truck.
Here's your pre-order.
Yeah.
Click this button at the bottom of the obituary for your pre-order. Yeah,
I think it's so crazy to me, because this is one that I actually feel like, if you want to revitalize the belief in home cinema, if you just put up the pre-order for that thing,
and print,
if you want to sell a million copies
of
something on physical disc, and that's what I would pitch to George. Like, we're not going to put it up on Disney Plus. It's not going to stream anywhere. If you want it, you have to be one of the Criterion nerds. You have to have a physical disc player, and that's the only way that you can get it. And that's how you go get it. And that's what keeps it separate from everybody else. And it's nuts to me.
And by the way, they just showed the original version at the Academy Museum. Was it several months ago or whatever? The original version.
He's letting them show it from time to time when they ask. Now, usually it has something more to do with, like, effects people are there, and so they don't want any digital in it. So it's tied into like the science of model making or something like that, and he kind of gives it a pass, which is more than he used to. So wherever that fits in.
I think it is one of those things that I think eventually you'll see it, and eventually, I mean, in the meantime, 4K 77 is my God,
it's pretty incredible.
I'm so glad that exists.
But okay, so here we go. How do I watch that on my television?
So there's a website, and there is a discussion forum, and you have to become a member of the discussion forum.
Right.
And then once you do, there are ways to get the links to download those things. But
I have the files. Yeah, I have the files. How do I watch it on my television? Oh,
okay.
Not just on my computer?
So here's the thing. If I've got like an Oppo, a Blu-ray player, and I think Panasonic, a lot of the Blu-ray players do this, have a USB slot. Right. So if you put those things on a jump drive, on a USB drive, and plug them in, a lot of players can play MKV files and various kind of video files right off a little jump drive. So that's what I do, is I put them on a jump drive and I take them down to the home theater, plug them into the Oppo, and I could play them on the big screen in 4K.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are definitely ways. I mean, if you want to see those movies in 4K in your home theater, the original versions, they absolutely exist.
Speaking of
and in fact, I may have done a Patreon post about that exact topic a few months ago.
I might have missed that one. I got to go scan back.
Maybe someone isn't really on the Patreon after saying they've been on the Patreon for a long time.
No, I'm there.
All of a sudden, you've been exposed. No. Speaking of versions.
My handle is not David Mandel.
Wise. Probably wise.
Here's my question about the versions of things, where sometimes there are, I guess in my mind, whether it's been a special edition or a director's cut or whatever, in the Blu-ray world or even in the old, regular DVD world, although let's go with the Blu-ray world for a minute, where it's sort of like, okay, the Donner cut or whatever it is, and you go, this is great, I really love this. And then they do a 4K, but often it's not sometimes it's the original cut and not the Donner, and I do get frustrated a bit, because not that it's an either or. I guess I just wish both. I have that with Zodiac. I much prefer the director's cut, which from time to time disappears. Those extra 9 minutes or whatever it is. I don't even know. Is the 4K the director's cut, or is it the original cut? I honestly don't even know the answer.
That's a good question.
But you know what I mean? It's like,
it's so hard to keep track of that.
Yeah, I know. There are those things, and I do get a little sometimes occasionally frustrated by, because again, I just want to throw out the old versions,
That's the other thing that we try to do is to go back through all the discs and
say this is what you're not getting
carry over. But it's hard because when they go to do these things, sometimes is the negative conform to one version or the other, right? It's was it done in that sort of that deep well of 1995 to 2003, whenever.
Well, no, but it is that thing of like, I think I'm still holding on to my Aliens Laserdisc box set,
Yeah.
because when they first did the Blu-ray, they didn't have enough room for all of the documentary information.
Yeah.
Even though I've never gone back and watched it on the stupid Laserdisc, so it's like that kind of those frustrations.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're a diehard fan of those films too, that's how it is. I mean, it's so funny. We were talking about the idea of like not using your actual name on the Patreon. I so often wish that I was ambitious enough to create like a social media handle that isn't Bill Hunt at Bill Hunt Bits.
Right.
Because everywhere I go, I immediately start getting like little questions. Immediately, I get 100 questions from people like, "What's my favorite movie coming out? And what's the story with this? And what's the story with that?" And it's like, it's overwhelming. There's just so much coming out, and the moment a title gets announced, typically the press release doesn't have the kind of information. Like, for example,
so people are coming to you going, "What is it?"
Right.
Yeah.
And then I have to, and a lot of times it's not in the press release. So then I have to make a phone call, and sometimes I can find out, sometimes I can't. And it's just, and now with so many titles coming out, it's just overwhelming. It's almost an impossible task to keep track of it all.
What is next in terms of, because I feel like we've hit the kind of limit, right? Because 35 millimeter scans to, my understanding is scans to about 5K, right? So there is maybe a little bit more information there.
And it depends. It depends on how it was filmed, how it was lit, how it was exposed, right? The stock. So yeah, resolution there is a hard resolution limit for some of these things. In theory, with 70 millimeter movies, you could go higher. You could go up to 8K. You could go up,
Lawrence of Arabia has been scanned at 8K, right?
Right. That's exactly right. But as far as consumers, I think we've reached the limit. I think 4K is the last disc format that we're going to see. And I think 4K is enough for most purposes. It's enough. There are already, obviously there are 8K televisions, and there are starting to be more and more 8K production. But I don't see any push in the industry to go 8K. I don't see any push on the consumer side to really go 8K. When you get to 8K, 12K, those things are like, if you work for the CIA and you're doing satellite imaging, or if you work for you're like surgery and you need to get like a really, really refined imaging, that stuff starts to make sense. But I think in terms of,
what if you're screen matching props, Bill?
Well, okay, that's a different thing, right? But I really don't. I think 4K is the last physical media format. I think it's possible that you could see 8K, and you might get some limited, probably maybe digitally, you might get some 8K movies like Lawrence and things like that. And what they could in theory do with 8K is do auto stereoscopic 4K. Right? Or 3D 4K, but actual 3D. That's something you could do with an 8K pipe. You could do 4K in 3D. And then one of the things that they're working on, and every year I go to CES. And
I can't wait to watch this on my phone. Yeah, go on.
Right. That's exactly right.
I like it on like a screen like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Every year I see demonstrations of 3D without the glasses.
Oh,
so auto stereoscopic, right? And the technology is getting better and better. The problem is that what I've been told in terms of the technology is that in order to do auto stereoscopic correctly, to do it really well, you have to have a dedicated image processor for every like 5 degrees of the screen. So that means a lot of processors, which means a lot of cost, a lot of processing power. I know James Cameron has been someone who's experimented with a lot of this kind of thing. They were talking for a while. He was hoping that like auto stereoscopic for theaters would be ready in time for some of his Avatar films, right?
Oh, wow.
Whether that'll happen, I don't know, but I think
it has to be, because there's going to be 27 of them. So eventually,
right.
I
think probably some kind of an 8K format with auto stereoscopic capability will be where we land ultimately in terms of imaging for the consumer, whether in theaters, whether at home. But as far as disc, I think 4K is probably the last disc format we're going to see. And hopefully 4K disc can exist for another 20, 30 years. I mean, in theory,
but
right?
I think that's a good thing, because then there's more investment because if people know it's the end of the line, then maybe they will dig deep and get those sort of lost releases that maybe never even made it to Blu-ray, and start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Really building out the real film library.
Do you get rid of your old media if like something comes out and it's completely replaced and you feel good enough that all the extras are there, everything is there? Will you let go of the old one, or are you just putting it in storage?
100%.
You will let go. Okay.
Not always. Like if there's a sentimental thing, like I still, for example, have my very first Blade Runner snapper case DVD
Sure.
and I've got my Blade Runner Criterion Laserdisc, right? I've got that. But yeah, most stuff I will definitely. I mean, that's the first thing I do, and because I know that's the first question I'm going to get asked is, okay, is everything from the original DVD plus the Vista Series DVD plus the first Blu-ray plus the new Blu-ray?
Is it all there? Right.
Is it all there? And so that's the first thing I do is sit down and check all that stuff and try to include that. We try to include that kind of thing in our reviews. But yeah, I will. I mean, I just can't. I mean, I get sent so much stuff, and I do buy some things, but I get sent so much stuff. And then a lot of the stuff that I get goes out to my team to do reviews. And so, but I've still got a room just with like, the IKEA Billy shelf. I've got like just 30 of those, right, in multiple rows, just packed with discs. So
that's great.
I mean, it's one of those things where I was kind of browsing the stacks the other day, and I was thinking to myself, God, if I started watching these movies right now, 24 hours with no sleep, I probably wouldn't live long enough to watch all of these movies. So which was a sobering realization, right? And then you kind of think like, okay, well, what am I, I'm going to have to try to find a place for some of these and sell some. And
connected to that, 2 follow-up questions, because I'm just curious. So you keep them in the original cases. You were never somebody that like tried to throw the case out and put them in sleeves to make them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like take up less space. Okay.
I did with my music collection, with a lot of my music CDs. I took
got rid of the boxes.
I got rid of the case and put the slip in the paper sleeve, and I kept those. But yeah, like, because a lot of times there's, first of all, there's sentimental value to the packaging, and there's artwork, and sometimes they're custom, and I kind of feel like I still want to keep those things all together for now. Yeah. But look, I know people right now are really big into the steelbook thing. I just don't do steelbooks because they take up too much room on my shelf.
Yeah, I try not to do them unless somehow for some reason I bump into the steelbook before I can find the other one. Yeah.
If I have the option, I get them, but I'm not like, I need everything in a steelbook. Thankfully that problem has not arisen with me.
A lot of that is tied to like if there's a great artist that you like that's doing the cover or whatever it might be.
Something special about it. Yeah, the Disney pin in there.
Yeah, the Terminator looks great. The Terminator one that they did, the limited edition for the upcoming release that's like 3 weeks away or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
Do you still, for lack of a better word, put the disc into the machine? Or have you experimented at all with like burning them to some kind of a server so that it's all there, but you can access your entire library? I was curious about that.
I don't have the bandwidth to do, but I mean just mental bandwidth and like time bandwidth to really like set up a home server.
Gotcha.
And
so
rip
you are
everything and
putting the thing in the machine.
I'm absolutely putting the disc in. But what I have started to do over the last 5 years or so is I do start redeeming the digital codes.
Sure. So you have those as well.
Yeah. So I've got the digital codes as well. And what I find is useful for that is sometimes I'll go into like my Apple or Movies Anywhere, and I'll start playing a digital stream, and I'll realize, oh shit, they upgraded it to 4K.
Oh, that's interesting.
But they haven't announced a 4K disc yet.
Right. So you kind of know it's oncoming. Yeah.
Yeah. So then like I make a phone call and go, hey, I just noticed you guys like put this up on Apple. Like, what's the story? And like, well, there's a disc coming. We just haven't announced it yet. And it's like, so sometimes it's like that. And you can also, it is a good way, like, a lot of times the digital will come out first and then the disc will come out later. So it's
a good way to kind of know in advance, like,
exactly. Are there any issues with it? Did they mess something? And there was an interesting situation with The Abyss when the movie screened at like Fantastic Fest and some of the things, the new 4K restoration of that. A bits reader was at that up in LA, and he saw the screening, and he caught an audio. There's a significant audio error in the end of the movie that the mastering team hadn't caught. And he emailed me and he said, hey, just want to let you know, like they missed something it was an audio error that was, caused by the branching from the theatrical version to the extended version, right, on DVD. And it started on DVD, but then it somehow perpetuated itself on the Blu-ray, and it perpetuated itself again to the new 4K master. And he said, hey, can you let him know, because there's a problem. And so I was able to like contact the studio and the people working on the disc and said, "Hey, there's a thing. Here it is. Here's the details." And they, sure enough, they checked and they were able to fix it. So
Oh
that
wow.
so the 4K stream had the error still, but when it came out on disc,
It
they
was
fixed
solved. Wow.
They fixed
That's
it.
nice.
Wow.
And then they went back and updated the 4K stream. So it's like, it's amazing how the digital version has become a useful tool in terms of what I do for reviewing and quality control and all of those kinds of things.
Fascinating. What's the craziest price you ever chart when something comes out, sells out, and then is like on eBay or whatever? What's the
Those
most
Columbia,
What's the
those
most
Columbia
ridiculous
collections when
like
they sell
price
80
you've
discs
seen?
in one?
Yeah, where the
Like-
SRP is like 35 or 300 bucks or something like that, right? And then I can't think of what the actual number would be, but oh my God, I've seen a lot of things where, especially when something is limited, where people will go and buy 3 or 4 versions and keep one for themselves and dump all the rest on eBay. That secondary market is bananas, man.
It's just
Some
wild,
of the stuff, and every now and again it's a movie that you wouldn't expect, or it's like, like I was looking on Etsy or eBay, and I just noticed that somebody's selling like the complete Muppet Show. Because Disney started to do DVDs of the Muppet Show, but they didn't do all the episodes. And some of the episodes they didn't do all the seasons, and some of the episodes were edited and things like that. And somebody has, they've, from a variety of sources, gone and laser disc and broadcast recordings and created their own DVD and Blu-ray box set. And you could buy them on eBay and Etsy, and it's like $100 or something like that. And it's just for a completely custom thing. And
right.
That's, I'll tell you what, when I started to look on eBay and especially Etsy and saw all kinds of bootlegs, like of Disney Plus stuff and like the original Star Wars versions and stuff showing up on there on Blu-ray and DVD, that's kind of when I knew that the studios had really checked out of physical media, because previously they would have jumped on that and stopped that like immediately. But it's amazing how even now, it's amazing how much of that stuff you can find.
No, the one that jumped out at me was they now have the, what do they call it? The Godfather, where they put it in chronological order, and it's the whole, but there's a lot of extra scenes in, and it has different versions. There is a version that I believe was officially released, but some fans have now put out the full, I don't know, they call it like the Godfather Epic, and it's $19 for a Blu-ray or something.
Yeah,
like
well,
that.
and it was right, and it came out on DVD, and then the interesting thing is that I think they showed it in HD on TMC or
right,
one of those things.
Yeah.
And so somebody recorded it in HD and made a Blu-ray, and you can buy it. Yeah.
It's just wild.
Bill, this is great fun.
Yeah, I do have one. I have one quick last other question, and then Ryan, you can
100%.
bring it on home. Yeah. My movie Eurotrip. Will there ever be a 4K? Any rumors? What are we hearing? Who can we talk to? How do we get the 4K?
I haven't heard it. That's a Paramount title? Is it? Am I right?
Yes, it was
a Paramount title.
DreamWorks released by Paramount. I believe.
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
Give them a little time. Paramount is pretty good about. I mean, obviously with the sale of Paramount to the new
Lord knows,
everything's kind of on hold right now. So the next 6 months might be kind of weird, but they also are licensing a ton of stuff out. That is exactly the kind of title that I would not be at all surprised if they licensed it to like Kino Lorber Studio Classics or someone. And I'd be very surprised, frankly, if in the next couple of years that didn't happen.
I'll be surprised if it does happen. Anyway, that was it. That was it for me. Go ahead,
I want to
Ryan.
see Eurotrip Studio Classic. I just want to see that on the same
in stereo, whatever 8K.
Yeah, I mean,
Auto
I'll
stereo.
tell you what, never say never. I mean, I'm blown away at the stuff that's coming out in 4K that I never thought we do. I mean, and yet we don't have like Tombstone, and we don't have some of The Rock, and but it's amazing. It's a pretty fantastic time if you're a collector of physical media, especially a 4K fan. It's also unfortunately a very expensive time.
Yes,
just the sheer number of titles that are coming out every month now. It's almost impossible to keep up.
Have you ever dipped your toe into any other collecting, be it movie posters or props or anything like that?
That's what I was going to get to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I've got some movie props. I don't have too many. I'll kind of get to the prop thing by a roundabout thing, but I am obsessed with collecting spaceflight patches.
Ooh, okay.
When I was like 8 or 9, I was my uncle. We're at my uncle's house.
By the way, I saw your you have a JPL mug, I believe.
I do have a JPL mug, and
I've
got some cool stuff to show you here. So we were at his house in North Dakota cleaning out his attic, and it turned out he was in college when the Apollo moon landings happened, right? Okay. So we were going through this box of stuff, and there was an Apollo 11 patch just a souvenir patch. But he goes, oh, here, I was kind of looking at it going like, wow, what's this? And he handed it to me. And he goes, yeah, you can have that. And then a couple of years later, I was reading the pages of the beloved Omni magazine, which is now defunct, but I'm sure, I love that. And in the pages of that, in the back of the magazine, there was an ad for Tang, where if you redeemed like 3 bottle, or whatever, like proofs of purchases or whatever, and sent in $5, they would send you some space shuttle patches. So I did that. And then I just became absolutely obsessed. And so over the years I've got one of the 3 or 4 probably best collections of patches in the world. And I've got
wow.
this. So this is Alexei Leonov's like Russian made Apollo Soyuz patch. Signed by him.
Oh, that is gorgeous.
I've got, so when the Challenger accident happened, the Space Shuttle Challenger, there was another space shuttle mission. It was called SCS-61E that was supposed to fly right after that. And of course the flight got canceled, but they'd already made the patch.
Holy crap.
So,
wow.
So I've got like one of those.
That's like a NASA, that's a NASA patch.
These are yeah, absolutely. They never released these to the public. They only made a small number for the crew, and they were in the process of approving this when everything got canceled, and so they never actually produced this patch officially. So there's only like a small number of these that exist. And
did you read the new Challenger book, by the way, the Adam Higginbotham one, the guy that wrote the Chernobyl book?
I haven't read that, but I've read a number of those kinds of books. It's fascinating behind the scenes.
It's fantastic. I don't know if it adds. I think there is some new information. Yeah. That's why it was timely and whatever. But it's fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Very worthwhile. But so I've got like you can't see it. I've got framed up here. I've got like one of Gene Kranz's original Apollo era mission control patches that I actually got from Krantz. But this is the holy grail.
So you actually got to know Krantz a little bit. You got to know.
I got to meet him. Yeah, I got to meet him. And over the years that I've been doing this, I've gotten to meet a bunch of the astronauts, in fact.
That's really cool.
That's wild.
So this is my holy grail. These are, with the exception of this one and one down here, they never made a patch for this flight. So the crew made one years later. And this Apollo 8 patch, there are probably the actual patches that they made for the suits. There may be as few as 4 of them.
Oh wow!
And of course, 2 of them were actually sewn onto suits, right, for the Gemini mission. So, but all these other patches are original suit patches made. These are not the souvenir patches; these are the ones they made to sew on the suits.
Right.
And I got these from a guy named Clyde Teague, who was a suit technician for NASA. And some of these patches actually have like the NASA part number, and it says like a little label on the back that says the Dave Clark Company, because when they produced these patches, they sent them to the Dave Clark Company, who made the suits, to actually sew onto some of the suits. And like this patch, this Gemini 6 patch, I got from Wally Schirra. Wow. And you can't see it here, but it's actually got stitch marks on it. He actually wore it on his flight jacket.
Oh wow! And then took it off. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So it's like,
that's incredible, Bill.
Yeah. So like I just like the space flight patches, because it's also, there's so much symbolism on the patches. Like every element of the patch has some aspect or bearing on the mission or the crew and things like that. So from that, then I went to fictional space flight patches.
That's just my next question. Really quickly though, so are you looking at space auctions constantly? Are you always looking, or do you have a master list of real mission stuff that you're still looking for and whatnot? Like, what's your dream piece just of the real stuff?
The one I don't, an original Apollo 8 patch would probably be the dream patch that I don't have. I've got almost everything else that I want. I've been doing this for so long, and I've actually been doing it for so long now that I'm within the community of spaceflight memorabilia people, and that I'm like actually fairly well known. So when people have questions, sometimes when auction houses have questions, is this an authentic patch or is it a replica patch? I'll get an email or a phone call saying, hey, can you authenticate this kind of thing?
That's awesome.
Wow,
but this is
really cool.
So this is Capricorn 1.
Capricorn 1, yeah.
That's an original. Wow. That's an original patch made for the film Capricorn 1.
That's fantastic.
So that's it's like I went from like historical patches, and I finally I got most of the ones that I was looking for. So I thought, okay, I've got to do that, and then from there, like Star Trek, I've got like some some of these Enterprise, and I've got patches from the motion picture, and Mike Okuda is a friend of mine, and he was actually over here a few months, and I was showing him the patch collection because he's obviously a big space nerd, and he saw the Enterprise patches, and he picked him up and he goes, oh, let me tell you the whole story about how I designed this, and that's what I love about this
wonderful.
stuff is that if you're a fan of the movies, or if you're a fan of space flight, there's so much history embedded in every one of these designs that you can talk for hours about what things meant and how how they played out, and it's a piece. They're like little pieces of history. So that was my first collecting love, and from there I've got a few actual movie props. I don't have
What's your dream space patch that you don't have? Is there a dream space patch?
Apollo 8, right?
It's
No. Sorry,
movie space. Okay.
No, what about from the movie side?
Oh, that's a good question.
What movie patch would you like? I don't know if this is our end game, but whatever. Yeah,
I think it is now.
Yeah,
I don't know that there's a movie patch specifically that I would be looking for, but I would love to get one of the original series, the Chevron patches, the Enterprise, Star Trek Chevron patches. I've got some stuff from the motion picture, but all of that other stuff.
People don't realize that on the original series, there obviously there was the triangular, the familiar, the chevrons.
Yeah.
But there were some of the other, forgive me, ships and whatnot had some really funky, interesting, patches too that are really kind of wild.
Some of them weren't even patches. Some of them were just like brooches and stuff that the production designer, right, like found and thought, oh, this
just
is
random things. We'll put two of these on. Yeah, no.
But then in terms of like actual movie props, so then the first thing I ever did was this was back when the internet was brand new. They would, somebody would go online and go, oh, I figured out like what all the parts were. And so like I myself just went to a store and I found the Graflex flash gun for like $30 or whatever, and found all the parts. And so I built that. Like I've got, for example, another thing that I really love is I've got my Richard Coyle.
Oh, very nice.
Right?
The Blade Runner gun. Yeah.
This is the CS&T Worldcon version, right? Because I actually went to Worldcon in Anaheim, and I was there that morning, and I'm walking through the dealer room when that prop resurfaced for the first time in years and years. And I was walking past the glass case, and I'm like, "Oh my God, is that what I think it is?" And the guy's like, "Yep, right. You want to hold it? You want to see it?" And
I do.
Right. And within a couple hours, like there was nobody there at the time, but within a couple hours, word got out, and every prop person in LA was there, and there was a crowd, and they were taking photos of it, and then the replicas all got much better right after that. And I've got some silly things that I really love. This is just a replica, but I really love.
Oh, yep.
Dapper Dan Pump. I'd kill to have one of the originals of these. I don't know, if any exist still or not. But
I'm not trying to be an asshole. I actually have an original in my collection.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'd love to see pictures of that.
I have a Dapper Dan, and I have a, what was the other one? Fop, the one he hates. Yes, I got one of each, yeah.
This is something silly that I still love. This, I don't know if you recognize this. This is Dr. Strangelove's nuclear bomb effects calculator from Dr. Strangelove. And it turned out, this is, he fumbles with it at the end because he can't get it to work. And it turns out that the U.S. government made hundreds of these and put them in a book. And you can just buy the book. It's like a bomb effects book. It's like a U.S. like a yellow
just
like
an
army
thing.
manual.
Oh, that's so funny.
And this came for free in the book, right? So I've got like that. And then the thing that it's kind of like my holy grail prop, and the thing that I wanted for years and that I finally have just last year, I finally got is a HAL.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
But like a really like good HAL. Like when I got it, the grill wasn't the correct color.
Right.
So I, went on like RPF and was talking to various people and like figured out exactly what the paint color should be, what the shade is. When I got the sticker, it was a sticker. And my thought was, okay, well, if this was an actual manufactured product, it would be an aluminum plate. So I actually had, I got the original artwork from the studio, and I had a company here in Orange County do the actual plaque. So do the plaque. And then years ago, this is how obsessed I was with this thing. Years ago, I picked up an actual Nikon Nikkor F8 lens.
Yes.
Knowing that one day, this was like 10 years ago, and I got it for like, a couple $100 or something. Knowing that one day I would actually have, I would actually complete this
be able to put it together.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's actually got like the correct, it's actually got like a lens cap. And
that's excellent.
And I've since added the light, and it's the correct lighting.
Have you thought about just selling these, like make them and sell them?
You should upgrade them all.
This was such a process. Like, and I hired a guy in Canada to do the audio. he does Arduino work, right? So I hired him. I paid him like $100 to create an Arduino. So I've got like a little chip in there, and I can, with a little remote, I can trigger all kinds of different sayings and stuff.
That's amazing.
This is probably like this in terms of like physical prop collecting. That's not really like the space patches is much more my thing.
Yeah.
But this was the one thing I didn't have that I absolutely had to have.
That's incredible.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah. So that's,
I tried. I showed my son. I took him to the at the Egyptian this summer, the 70mm festival, and we saw 2001, which he loved. And I tried to find a good HAL replica, and there was sort of a kit you could build that none of us. If I bought it, it would be just sitting here because I'm not that guy. I'm not the builder.
And a couple of years ago, Master Replicas took a
but those are selling for like and they're selling for like $1,000.
Well, and the Kickstarter happened during COVID, and they never delivered, right? So they went bankrupt.
I thought there was something that came out. Maybe it's something else. And someone made, maybe one of the 1/6 toy makers, like Sideshow, made something that sells for a crazy amount of money.
I think you're right.
That didn't even, that looked good, but not incredible. But God, I would love one of those.
Yeah, that was definitely my white whale. And I have one last thing here I'll show you, which is kind of I am a huge fan of Master and Commander.
I love that movie too. Yeah.
So this is an Aubrey. Did
you ever try reading? You ever try reading the books? I always meant to read the books, and I never did.
But I don't know if you can see them up here. I have.
Are those the books?
I have the entire library of the
so it's worth it. You like the books too.
Well, a friend of mine. So a friend of mine was a Blu-ray producer named David Pryor, and he's now a filmmaker. And when that movie came out on DVD, he said, "Listen, if you love this movie, you need to check these books out because the books are phenomenal. And I bought the first one. And I kind of sat with it for a couple of years, and then once I got into it, it's like, oh my God, it's phenomenal. In many ways, they're funny. They're like just the observations on human nature are incredible, and there's a lot of nautical lingo that they use in the book that you have
I read the first one. It's excellent, Dave. And they're like bond size. They're not huge. They're not tomes.
And the thing
they're
is,
like bond books.
If you love that first story, the series, and there are 20 books. Is one continuous narrative. And so if you love that first book, you can just keep going, and it's like
keep going.
20 years of those characters' lives.
I love that movie. That movie holds up. I got a chance. We were meeting about something with an effects company, and they were working on Master and Commander, and I got to see like a giant room of monitors, and all the monitors were just basically the digital sales and just them figuring out like all of that on the screen when we were in there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it was just incredible. Yeah,
this sword. So this isn't screen used, but it's made by the people who made them for the film. And then when I got it, it didn't have the sword knot. And the guy said, "Oh, hey, listen, do you want me to put you in touch with the person who made them for the film?" And so sure enough, I did. So he made a period British naval Napoleonic era,
that's excellent.
That's beautiful.
That's the extent of my like prop collecting. But I do
that's exciting.
I do have a few things that I love and that hang in my walls here and give me pleasure every day when I walk in here and sit down.
That's excellent. I love that. But the patch collection blows me away.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, and it's the cool thing about that is I've actually had the chance to meet a lot of the astronauts and some of the cosmonauts even, and
very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's been a delight. I would have loved to be an astronaut, and my life didn't go in that direction. But this is kind of the next best thing.
Yeah, patch collector, astronaut. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
That is excellent. This was fantastic. I don't know anything else, Ryan. I asked everything.
This is great. This was a robust conversation. We brought it all the way back around to props at the end.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man.
Really we brought it back to props at about the hour 30 mark. So congratulations, listener. Yeah, thank you for sticking with us. Yeah,
they will like it.
This is not quite Joe Rogan length, but we're holding on.
We're close. We're certainly much more. We're Mark Maron plus at least at this point. So
much more coherent than his most recent episode. So
yes. True.
What do you want to tell us? What do you want? Where can people find you? Where do you want people to find you? Tell us about the Patreon in case our listeners are loving this so much they need to sign
Absolutely.
Up. Tell us. Yeah.
Obviously, you can find our work every day on thedigitalbits.com. That's the Digital Bits website. My personal social media is at Bill Hunt Bits on Twitter and Facebook. and at thedigitalbits.com or at the Digital Bits, I think on Facebook and Twitter. We also, the Digital Bits has a Patreon that we are using because advertising is a challenging thing now for the internet. So we do a Patreon to kind of supplement our other sources of income. And we do a lot of, like, we're trying to do a lot of interesting stuff there that is not exactly what we do on the website, but complements what we do. And sometimes we break news on the Patreon first about upcoming things, supplemental kind of stuff, which has been fun. And then I'm also writing a science fiction. I've written a science fiction novel.
Oh, wow.
The interesting thing is I've been a writer for so many years now, for so many decades, and I've, reviewing movies and studying storytelling and everything. You just kind of get the bug at some point. So for about 10 years, I was doing a lot of writing for various sort of film and TV projects that never kind of quite happened. I was a producer on an animated TV show called Chip and the Bark that we teamed up with Starburns, Dan Harmon's company, and we were and this was a Cartoon Network thing that was in development, and it never quite happened. And I did so many of those kinds of things that I thought, okay, I've got to write something that I can control and actually release myself and put out into the world, so anybody has any idea that I'm a writer. And so I've started a series of science fiction novels. The first 2 are completed, and I'm about ready to start do a Kickstarter to put the first one out.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, it's called Where Spacers Dare. It's a new near future sci-fi adventure with a dash of Alistair MacLean kind of a thing. Set about 100 years. It's in the wheelhouse of something like The Martian or For All Mankind, if you're a fan of that show. Yeah. A little bit of The Expanse kind of thing. Yeah, and I've got a series planned out of 6 books. Oh. And I'm gonna, sometime in the next couple months, I'm gonna launch the first one, and I'm just working on finalizing a couple things right now, and then we'll get that launched.
Congrats, that's amazing.
Well, great, that's amazing. Yeah,
we all talk about it. None of us do it, but we all talk about it. Yeah,
yeah. And it was one of those things where it's like I would have written these stories if I never released them, but it's just one of those things that's kind of kept me with all the politics and all the stuff happening in the industry, and with COVID, it's kind of the thing that I've been doing that kept me sane through all of that stuff. Just a kind of creative outlet. Yeah, and I'm really digging it. I'm really enjoying it. So why not? I'm going to put them out in the world and see what happens.
All right, so you can look for that in the next couple of months, but follow along. And for us, please follow us on social media at Props Podcast on all the social media. Please go on to whatever your what's the word I'm looking for? Podcast app of choice, and review our show and give us 5 stars. It looks like it's been a couple of months since we've gotten a review. So if you haven't done a review lately, please go on and do a review. If you've never done one,
go on your partner's phone and make them give us a review.
Buy your small child a phone and write a review. Yeah,
there you go. I'll mention this all on the bits and on all our streams too.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll steer a bunch of new viewers your way.
Yeah, we'll see a little cross promotion. Very, very exciting. And our email, Ryan?
dreamsaremadeofpodcast@gmail.com.
There you go. This was great. Thanks so much, and we'll talk everyone soon. Yeah, we'll see everyone soon.